As mentioned in the last episode, Rick and the others pulled a lot of supplies back from Hilltop on the condition that they helped them get rid of Negan's Salvation Army. The first thing Rick did upon returning was to have Sasha notify everyone to gather at the church for a meeting. This must be made clear to everyone. The meeting began quickly, and Rick addressed the group, explaining the terms of the trade and the behavior of the saviors. He spoke seriously, stating that these people enjoyed enslaving other communities and forcing them to provide resources. If they discover our community later, this place will be equally enslaved. Rick stressed the need for proactive action to eliminate them, not only to help Hilltop, but also to protect their own community. Afterwards, Rick asked for comments or ideas. They exchanged uncertain glances and ultimately turned their attention to Morgan. Morgan asked Rick if he was certain they would succeed. Rick replied with confidence, citing their experiences, combat skills, and mindset as reasons to believe in their victory. However, Morgan came up with another peculiar suggestion, stating that if they had the strength to defeat them, they should simply inform the saviors of this fact and give them a choice to retreat. Rick thought Morgan's idea was absurd. They needed to seize the advantage and catch the saviors off guard, not negotiate with them. The two of them ended up arguing in the church. Aaron also stood up, expressing his support for Rick by mentioning the previous attacks they had endured. He stated that they couldn't let it happen again, at least not under his watch. In the end, except for Morgan's opposition, no one else voiced any objections in the meeting room. As the night grew darker, many individuals found it hard to sleep, because it would be active killing. Carol, too, wanted peace more than anyone else. That's why she's so decisive. She kept a record of the people she had killed, and so far, the count stood at 18. She also had a lot of inner turmoil. Glenn and Maggie, too, were unable to sleep. Maggie remained determined to act together with the group the next day. Tara and Denise bid farewell. It was a dangerous mission. After a while, they regrouped and began studying the geographical location of the saviors to formulate a battle strategy. Although unfamiliar with the inside, this man had a rough idea of the layout each time he went there. Rick ultimately decided to attack at night. The first order of business is to get Hilltop's captured residents back. Since those people wanted Gregory's head, they would give it to them. The next day, Rick and the others set out early and arrived at the road. They parked their cars and continuously honked the horn to attract the zombies. Rick instructed everyone to split up and find a substitute for Gregory. Glenn and Heath quickly took care of a few nearby zombies. One of them resembled Gregory, with a little haircut and beard trimming needed. Glenn severed the head of that zombie. After a while, the group gathered again for a meeting. Rick decided to wait until a few hours before dawn to take action when the guards would be tired, and the people inside would be asleep. If things didn't go well, they would retreat. They couldn't let the saviors know who they were during this operation, so Jesus stays out of the action to avoid being recognized. They would depart in the middle of the night. After saying that, everyone remained expressionless, revealing the heavy psychological burden each of them carried regarding taking lives. Rick went to Jesus' side, and they found 3 heads that resembled Gregory. They chose the most suitable one, although the nose didn't quite match. Rick didn't hesitate and punched the head a few times. Now it shouldn't be recognizable. They would say it was left in the fight, and at night it would not be noticed. Late at night, the area around the Savior's camp was very quiet. A car arrived, and the camp lights immediately turned on, accompanied by the warning shouts of the guards. The man in the car shouted that he was Andy from Hilltop and that the mission to kill Gregory had been accomplished. Only then was he allowed to approach. 2 armed men came out, showing little courtesy to the outsider and calling Andy a bastard. Andy handed over the severed head, but the 2 guards were wary and asked him to take it out himself. Andy was terrified but had to comply with their demands and take out head. When the fat man saw this, he was foul-mouthed again, and in one sentence he took the head of a chief. This made him feel very proud. However, the other guard remained vigilant, observing Andy's expression and inspecting the details of the head. Andy rushed to say that it looked a bit bloated after giving him a few punches on the leader's nose because he broke my hand. Without changing his expression, the man took the entire severed head and carefully examined it, occasionally glancing at Andy as if seeing through him. Andy was extremely nervous at this moment. Fearing that he had been discovered, the man tossed the head aside, wiped the blood off his hands on Andy's body, and arrogantly berated him, even giving him a slap and demanding that he bring more supplies next week. Andy had no choice but to swallow his pride, as such humiliation was not unfamiliar to him. Then, the man turned around and headed back to the camp, while the burly man whistled contentedly. However, right after that, Rick's team swiftly assembled at the entrance and quickly removed the burly man's body, cleaning up the bloodstains on the ground as if nothing had happened. Their first priority was to ensure the safety of the hostages. Andy picked up the man's handgun and tucked it behind him, trying to calm his emotions once again. Soon, the man emerged with the hostages, taunting them for a moment before a sharp knife pierced through his body, the hostage to scream in terror. Andy covered his mouth in time, signaling that they were all allies. Rick got the key and threw it at them. Tara, Gabriel, and the others were responsible for keeping watch outside, while the rest entered the building. After following Rick for such a long time, their combat operations were already well organized, comparable to a professional military operation. Rick instructed Michonne and Daryl to search for the armory, while he led the others to eliminate the people inside. Every action had been carefully planned, as they had studied the layout beforehand. Rick opened a door, revealing a quiet room that was not the armory. However, as soon as they entered, they found the members of the Saviors sound asleep. Rick cautiously aimed his knife at a man's head and then suddenly exerted force, killing him. Killing someone in such a manner was undeniably brutal. Glenn and Heath also discovered two people sleeping in a dormitory. Glenn hesitated to kill someone who was asleep, as he couldn't bear it, but for the sake of the team's survival, despite knowing that these people were not good, and had done unimaginable things, seeing them sleeping innocently intensified Glenn's guilt. Heath, at this moment, was also preparing to take action. He's rarely done anything like this in his experience, so he's even more afraid to do it. If the burly man wanted to kill him, he would not hesitate to fight back. But with these men lying here for him to kill instead, he felt bad. In the end, Glenn killed the burly man on behalf of Heath. Glenn understood how difficult it was to kill someone for the first time. After completing these actions, they looked at the pictures on the wall. These are the pictures of these bastards killing people, their guilt washed away. These people deserve to die. Abraham continued deeper into the base, carefully examining each room. Finding the armory was their top priority. However, when Sasha tries to open a door, she finds it locked and guesses that there will be something important inside. She swiftly attempted to pry it open with a knife, but just then, a figure emerged behind Abraham. When the man saw them with their weapons, he cut and wounded Abraham. The man pressed the alarm before he died. An alarm was sounded throughout the base. Maggie and Carol realized the situation was dire and both wanted to rush in for support. However, Carol stopped Maggie, reminding her that she was now a mother and couldn't take risks like before. Meanwhile, Jesus and his group were on high alert. Initially, Rick's plan was to rescue the hostages and promptly return them to Hilltop. Even if the operation fails, they closed the deal. But Jesus couldn't simply stand by and do nothing. He instructed Andy and the others to return first, while he masked himself and prepared to go in and support. Rick's group had already been exposed and could only engage the enemy head-on. These inexperienced thugs had no chance of surviving at the point of Rick's gun, as they were already exposed. They needed to kill them quickly before more people reacted. In another part of the base, Aaron heard footsteps and quickly hid in a room. However, he failed to notice a burly man charging towards him from behind. Fortunately, Aaron evaded just in time and killed the man with his knife. It was no time for mercy now.
If it wasn't us, it was gonna be you.
After dealing with the man, Aaron opened the door. Fortunately, Rosita killed another man, saving him from harm. Daryl and the others charged forward, killing their way through the hallway. Glenn and Heath are being chased. They have no choice but to hide in a room. It was only when Heath entered that they realized they had stumbled upon the armory. The door was already riddled with bullet holes from the gun outside. As the gunshots ceased, the people outside surely believed they were dead. Heath and Glenn immediately grabbed two guns and unleashed a barrage of fire towards the door, emptying nearly 60 rounds of ammunition. The few people outside are dead as a doornail. Just as they both breathed a sigh of relief, the man outside was surprisingly still alive.
This is the next world.
The person was none other than Jesus. Two men fled from the base, but Tara had been waiting for them. Gabriel approached with a gun and saw that one of the men was still alive. Having been shot but not fatally, he commanded the man to drop his weapon, but the man, seeing Gabriel dressed as a priest, was convinced that he wouldn't pull the trigger. He had encountered too many people like Gabriel before. Unfortunately for him, he had encountered the changed Gabriel. Until early morning, Rick's team had swept the place. They were victorious in the battle, yet they were not happy. After all, it had been a massacre. Michonne was burdened with her own thoughts, and she spoke with Rick about who among them might be Negan. At that moment, to their surprise, a motorcycle burst out from within the base. Carrying an unexpected straggler, Rosita shot him and knocked him to the ground. Daryl rushed forward to subdue him and delivered a brutal beating. The motorbike belonged to Daryl and was taken by Dwight and his wife. Rick aimed his gun at the man's head. This man was also angry and said kill him, just as they had killed the others. But at that moment, a woman's voice came through the walkie-talkie.
You with the cold python.
Ask Rick and the others to drop their weapons. Everyone was immediately on alert and it was clear that someone was watching them. Rick told them to come out and talk.
We're not coming out, but we will talk. We've got a Carol and a Maggie. I'm thinking that's something you want to chat about.